God, Christian Workers for Fellowship, 6th District Virtual Convention. This is the 91st Annual Assembly and the 75th Joint Sunday School and Y.P.P.U. Council, where our theme is Perfect Vision in Imperfect Times, Nehemiah 1 and 7, where our district bishop is the phenomenal Dr. Julian Turner, and our overseer is Overseer Johnny Roseberry. I am Overseer Clifford Morgan, 6th District Minister of Protocol, and your host for this dynamic two-day event. We are so elated that you have taken the time out of your busy schedules to join us in this virtual space on your technical devices to help us to uplift the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and to thank him for his greatness and his mercies and his blessings to each and every one of us. We pray that you will receive a bountiful blessings from this convention, and in doing so, help us to catch on fire and to spread the good news about a good God. Now we ask that you hit your like button, press your share button, so that all of your friends and loved ones will be able to share in this dynamic, phenomenal Let's Talk, which is about to occur. This service can be seen via Facebook, on YouTube, and on your cell phones for you to enjoy. During these services and workshops, we do ask that you keep your devices on mute unless it is a session where we are entertaining questions and responses. Please do that for us so that we won't incur all of the, background noises that some of you might have, the dog barking and sipping your cup of coffee, different things like that. Now we would like for you to put into the chat all of your amens and hallelujahs if you enjoy it. We want you to do that. Feel free to put those remarks into your chat, the chat room. Kicking off our convention is the state of our state, how we can help better our communities. And to take us further will be the sponsor or the president of our Young People's President, which is called, we call it YAM, which is Young Ministers Association, Young Adult Ministers Group. The president is Missionary Blaine Morgan. She's going to come now and tell you what is about to happen and introduce the person that is going to take part and lead us through this Let's Talk. Blaine, we're in your hands.
All right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Blaine allowed me to
okay.
Okay. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the District 6 Young Adult Ministry, I have the privilege of being able to introduce this man who we all admire and respect here in Oklahoma City. I definitely do. I met him some years ago when I was working at Mid-America Christian University. I found out that he already knew my father for years, knew my family for years. He is definitely an admired and respected dynamic leader here in Oklahoma City in our community. He definitely has done so many things for us here. He's an honest, he's available, and that's not something we can say about every one of our political leaders, but he is definitely those things. He is Oklahoma State Senator Dr. George Young. He represents Oklahoma House District 48. A couple things about Dr. Young. He received his Doctor of Ministry degree from Phillips Theological Seminary in Community Development and Urban Ministry. He currently holds a Master of Business Administration from Oklahoma Christian University in Nonprofit and Organizational Management. Currently, he is an adjunct professor for several schools here in Oklahoma, including Phillips Theological Seminary, Mid-America Christian University, and Southwest Christian University. He is the current chair of the board and CEO of Faith to Government Incorporated. Presently, he is a senior therapist and court advocate for Alcohol and Substance Abuse Court Care for Change Incorporated. Senator Young has served as chair of the Oklahoma Legislative Black Caucus, past president and board member of the Oklahoma Conference of Churches. He is currently serving on several committees with the State Department of Health, in the City County Health Department for minority health issues. Dr. Young has received several awards, including the 2021 Neighborhood Service Organization Good Samaritan Award, the 2021 Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits Vision President's Award, 2021 A Chance to Change Community Impact Award, the 2020 Legislator of the Year in Urban League of Oklahoma City, and the Russell M. Perry Equal Opportunity Award of 2020. We know the list goes on and on for the awards and accolades that he's received. The impact that Dr. Young has had on the state of Oklahoma, on our community here, has been really unparalleled, and we're just thankful to him to come to here and to kind of grace us with his presence today. We are very blessed. We are very grateful to have Senator Dr. George Young with us for a second year in a row now, and we look forward to hearing his dynamic instruction and his information here today.
Is it on me?
Yes, sir.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I want to make sure you.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. You were talking about somebody. I didn't know who you were talking about. You went on and on. I wanted to meet that fellow. That's how good he sounded. So I don't even know him. But to our presiding prelate, Bishop Dr. Julian Turner, and then Overseer Roseberry and Bishop Overseer Morgan's, I guess, plural, and to Cliff. You know, Cliff is one of those young men who I think are just nice by nature. And so I need everybody who's listening to take in all that stuff he said, because you'll be expecting something more than I can give. And I don't want to have false advertising. He tried his best, but when you serve a few years and live a few years, people start giving you stuff just to go away. So let's don't take those awards and things too seriously. But what an honor it is to be here and to be with you again. And I do want to have a few things to say, and then surely I want to leave it open so that we can have questions. And I don't have the answers to them, but at least I can give you some insight into some of the things that I feel that are going on, at least on the state level, and to some level on the other levels, county, city, and on the federal level. So I will start off this last session, 58th session of the Oklahoma Legislative meeting started off really rocky. And one of the things is that obviously the pandemic was going on. And I said this to you to give you some context of, one, my perception of this session, and two, I think an overall perception that also existed during this session, not only for Oklahoma, but I think for most state legislatures and federal and other government levels of entities. COVID caused us to do some things differently. And so one of the first things that really struck me was all of us was reading about, and I was concerned about the numbers of COVID cases in African-American communities. And the reason we didn't in Oklahoma, Bishop Turner, is that our population is not so condensed that it's still condensed. Don't get me wrong. It's pretty dense population, but it's not as you would go to other places on the East Coast and the Midwest and North Cleveland, Detroit, and then East Coast, because their buildings go straight up. Ours, we got a whole lot of land. And so that really, people didn't talk much about that. That helped us in the COVID fight because it kept people kind of apart, and you didn't have people going into 20, 30-story apartment complexes carrying the disease and spreading it. And we had our problems, but we did not ever exceed, I don't think, 6 or 7% as the numbers. Now, I don't think those numbers were right, but accurate, but I don't think we did have any explosion in our community. But the other side of that is our session started the first Monday in February. And you can remember back, things were still closed down. And the governor of the state of Oklahoma had deemed that all state facilities, you have to wear a mask. Well, in the Capitol, because it is the Capitol, and you have the leader of the Senate, which is the pro tem, and the leader of the House, which is the Speaker, they have, obviously, I was not aware of that until this year, and I really hadn't gotten this official. I'm telling you what they took. They had powers that I did not know they had, and they went against what the governor said, and they required visitors and all the staff to wear masks. Starting the session, first Monday in February, but they did not require elected officials to wear a mask. I had a problem with that. It was like one of those things later, before session started. It's one of those things, we had a meeting in our caucus, and somehow the Senate had gotten some vaccine and they wanted to give it out to just the senators, but they asked us, don't tell anybody if you get it. Well, I thought, no, stop. What do you mean don't tell anybody? If you go, I'm trying to get folks to take the vaccine, I'm going to take it and then turn around and lie to somebody after I have taken it because you don't want them to know that we're getting special treatment. No, you shouldn't have told me, because I'm going to tell everybody I know, because I shouldn't get that kind of special treatment. And you shouldn't ask me to not say anything about it. So it was the first, before we even got in session, that occurred. And I did not take it because I did not. I was trying to encourage folk with all the timidity I could, because I was not fully, that vaccine was created very quickly, but it was created on a already existing platform. And I talked to enough professionals, pharmaceutical professionals, doctors, that I was comfortable with pushing it. But then to turn around and try, and with the 500,000 folk that we had lost to this thing, yes, I want everybody at least give them the opportunity. I'm not going to make anybody, but have everybody to have the vaccine. So the problem was, we started after all of that rocket started, and we got there, and so they didn't make the elected officials, which I thought was absurd. You're going to make staff and you're going to make any visitors wear a mask in the Capitol. But what exempts elected officials from being killed with COVID, when we've seen them all over the nation? We had legislators do that. So that was the first thing. And I wore my mask, and I didn't go in until I got my second shot. So it was the middle of March, but they had to let me vote from my home. But I didn't go in until the middle of March. And from the middle of March until the last session 2 weeks ago in May, I wore my mask and out of protest. And so that was the start of it. And that was a rocket start, because obviously I don't think we did all that we should have done. I don't think we got in as quick enough on this particular pandemic that we should have. And then we'll talk a few minutes more about some other aspects of it. But I want to make sure that the group that's listening, one, as a legislator, as a senator or a representative, I'm a state senator and served as in the House of Representatives for 2 terms. We only have 2 responsibilities, and that is to pass laws that impact the lives of citizens of Oklahoma, all of them. And the second thing is to do a budget by statute, by constitution. Those are the only 2 responsibilities that we have. Now, the environment of the makeup, you need to know about it. And this is important when you start thinking about why certain things don't get passed, why certain things do get passed, is we have 101 state representatives. 101, they represent anywhere from 35 to 40,000 folk. We have 48 state senators, and they represent anywhere from 75 to 80,000 individuals. Out of that 101, I think last year they had 19 Democrats. So you only need 51 to pass a bill. There are only 19 Democrats. So in the House, you can see the problem of getting any legislation from across the aisle passed. And the Republican Party, who had the greater numbers, had the opportunity to do whatever they want to do because they had the number. Likewise, in the Senate, 48 senators, only had 9 Democrats. They only need 25 to pass a bill. And so they really didn't need us, which creates an imbalance, not only in the parties, but in the political thought process, because whoever has the numbers, the majority, make all the rules. In a few minutes, I'll talk about that, make all the rules. And then on top of making the rules, they set all of the leadership positions. So you can see the problem for me coming into it as a Democrat. And in the House, there's only 5 African Americans, and in the Senate, there's only 2 African Americans. So you can see the buildup of, when talking to a group such as I'm talking to today, I wish I could have a better report on stuff that was passed. But if you look at the environment in which I had to work, I hope that you will have some understanding as how difficult it is and how important it is that all and each and every one of us not only register to vote, but vote. That's important. That's the only way we're going to change some things, to get some ideas that you would like into legislation. And so with it, I said a few minutes ago, when you got the numbers, they had a bill that came through the Senate, and it was going to name a bridge in the state of Oklahoma after the last person who supposed to have been president. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I can't even say his name. But anyway, the guy who was last supposed to be president, they got to name a bridge. And the statute says, you have to be dead 3 years. Now, Bishop, I didn't say nothing about wishing that man dead. I didn't say that. I want everybody to hear that. But he didn't fit the criteria. And so, but they're going to pass that bill. So when it was brought up to their attention, this is what they did. This is the environment I'm working in. They took the bill back, came back with it and made a motion to suspend the rules. Bishop, I mean, they suspended the rules. In other words, from this point, after they voted yes to suspend the rules, they could then change the rules. And they changed the rules so that they could let this one bridge be named after this one person, and then they restored the rules. So it's difficult to fight in a situation when people change the rules on you in the middle of the thing. That's why I'm glad to be here, y'all. I'm glad I love y'all because y'all love God. God doesn't change the rules. We know the rules and we need to live and apply our lives to them. That's the environment. So let me move on. And I hope if you got a question, please, Bishop Morgan, you can let them stop me, but I'm trying to get in as much information so that they'll have some foundation to ask me some questions. The 4 or 5 things that most important all the time, and most legislators will tell you these same 5 things. They don't, I want to know what their 4 or 5 is. Health, in particular, African Americans, the disparities that exist in our receiving health care. And for me, my district is Northeast Oklahoma City and Northwest Oklahoma City. I have arguably in my district one of the leading research hospitals in the world. The OU Health Science Center is one of the leading research hospitals. We are getting doctors, we're drawing doctors and people from all over the world because of that center. We have another Presbyterian Foundation Center not too far from it's in the same area, that we're drawing in cutting edge biologists, cutting edge individuals who are working with geneticists. We're right in Oklahoma City. And yet, within where that hospital is, the zip codes that are abutted to it have some of the worst health issues in the world. That's a crime and a shame that you've got that type of institution and we can't get them to move outside of their walls and not only take up our homes and areas and mess that up, but to come out and to offer us the health in things that we could use. And it's quite possible, but they have never, in my tenure in office and prior that, I pastored in Northeast Oklahoma City. I'm an interim pastor now in Northeast Oklahoma City. And so I'm aware of it. I knew if they were doing something. So that's the first thing. Other than education. We do have a problem in education with these. People say we lost a year. We've lost 2 years with the pandemic. And that's going to impact, I think, us in a more serious way, because many of my constituents didn't have the ability to go online, to be pushed to go online, to finish the work online. And I think it's going to show up years down the road. And in addition to that, I hope that if we don't start paying attention to kindergarten, Head Start, pre-K, first grade, second grade, third grade, I'm not throwing away any of the rest of the grades, but if we don't focus in on those particular grades, the beginning from school, really out of the womb, but when we can get our hands on the beginning of them starting school to about the third grade, you're not going to get the success in education that you want. And I push all the time for more money into that particular area. I'm not throwing away junior high and high school. Don't hear me say that. I'm saying if I had an emphasis, it would be on those early childhood educational years, because I think that's important. And education in general, we've got to get more of our folk who are going past the high school, secondary into higher ed. And it's VOTEC. We have one of the greatest VOTECs in the state, in the United States here in Oklahoma, in particular Oklahoma City with Metro Tech and Francis Tuttle. And they have just wonderful programs. And so everyone does not have to get a 4-year college degree, but we can make sure that we have people who are accessing the educational process. Obviously, the economics, and that ties into the pandemic. Economics, I was saying earlier, for some reason, someone came up with a great idea in the middle of the pandemic when we were dealing with unemployment. In particular, the system that we have in Oklahoma Employment Security Commission was not built to handle the number of unemployment claims that were filed. The system was overextended. There was no way. We knew that. We knew we were going to have problems. One, I think they reacted to that rather slowly. So, and that was part of the bang up at the end. Everybody couldn't get in for a long while. It was difficult, and that was understandable. But again, when you see something like this happen, anybody, if at church, if I see something down the road, I'm gonna get together 4 or 5 folk who I think can understand what might happen and what could be done to offset it. Set them in a room and say, "Hey, listen, I need y'all to come up with an answer to this before we get into the middle of it." And that did not happen. Now we have a lot of committees in state government, but for whatever reason, they did not create that committee that could have, even in the middle of it, if it could have, I think, helped that situation out. And so that was a big problem. But now they're trying to force folk back to work because the pandemic they feel like they have it under control. And so they're cutting off unemployment. But when you do that, you hurt people who still do not have jobs, one, to go back to, and two, even with the number of available jobs, some of them have children that they have to have childcare for. And let me tell you, you talk to any mother who has a child, and see how much child care costs now, because some of us who are past age and our children have to worry about child care, and we don't, because they are grandchildren, and we just pick them up on the weekend and then bring them back, just throw them out the door when we get up close to them. We don't have to really be with them all the time. It is expensive. It is expensive, and which leads to, in a few minutes, I'll talk about 4 or 5 of the bills that I thought were very significant and important in for me, that I tried to present. But that's, so the economic side of it, we still have not, and that's which tied to the education department. The economic part is still not where I would want it to be. And then I tie the last two in: social equity, social equality, and law enforcement. Obviously, we got a problem with law enforcement, with the number of people who have been murdered, unarmed people who have been murdered, unarmed African Americans who have been murdered, unarmed African American males in particular who have been murdered by law enforcement. We've got to deal with that. We've got to deal with that now. And I've got relatives who are on law enforcement, so I'm not condemning law enforcement. I am condemning the environment that has been created by law enforcement, and they know it exists. It has existed from the beginning. This idea of not being accountable for the actions they take. All of us make decisions, and we have to be accountable for those decisions. I don't care who you are. And so we can talk more about that qualified immunity thing, where we can't sue a police officer directly doing his work in the line of duty. And I don't know any other. Unless a soldier, I don't know anybody else who has that immunity. And if a soldier acts up in the line of duty, he'll get court-martialed. So there's nobody who's like that. And I'm not having it in for police officers. My goddaughter was the first female state trooper with the state of Oklahoma. And so I'm close to her. I'm close to a lot of those troopers up there. And so no, I'm not against law enforcement, but I am against this environment that has been created over the years when it comes to law enforcement, and when it comes to law enforcement in particular communities, that is the district that I serve. And so there's lots of work that we need to do with there. And then just the social equality thing across the board. We're back under attack. Well, let me rephrase that. We're still under attack. It has just intensified for us. And I'll talk more about that, just citing a few pieces of legislation that were passed this year that I think is evidence of the fact that we are still in a struggle of our lives that is just as great as the struggles in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And I can remember that in Memphis, because I was there when Dr. King was assassinated, and I was old enough not to fully grasp what was going on, but I knew I was Black, and I knew it had something to do with being Black, and I knew it had something to do with the rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution for Blacks. I knew that much because I like reading. And so to know that same struggle is going on today, not to, we made lots of progress, but that same struggle is going on today, really is telltale when you start looking at the United States. And there's a particular bill that I will take a few minutes to talk about in a minute that I think helps in explaining that. So you got health, education, economics, law enforcement, and then social equality. Those are the 5 pillars that I operate out of. And people ask me quite often, well, how do you do it? They knew I was a pastor, and that's how I came in. I've never had a moment when my faith journey collided with my political journey, because my faith journey dictates my political journey. So I'm not in a struggle internally. I'm never in a struggle internally. I'll ask now, because if something that I would ask God to help me in a vote in a minute. So, but that has never been a struggle, because I just I don't have that struggle. I believe in the faith journey that I've been on and where I have been brought to. And so I'm very satisfied with that. So that's just a brief overview. Again, it was 4 or 5 bills. I can take a break and take some questions, but there are 4 or 5 bills that I know and 4 or 5 issues and some bills that I presented that I'd like to talk about. And I think that would help open up some more of the conversation. So Bishop Morgan, what do you want me? I can see if there are any questions. I take them right now.
We have some questions, but Senator, go right ahead, and we can entertain those because we're enjoying all this information. Listen.
I hope you are. I'm getting ready with the questions because I want. So listen, this is the other thing. There were 4 or 5 bills, and remember the information I gave you, the environment in which I work. It only takes 25 votes. It was only, you can see the imbalance between the parties. And so I want you to hear this, because if you think I'm crazy, I need you to tell me one of the bills that I have proposed for the last 5 years is a minimum wage bill. And I only wanted to raise it to $10.50 an hour. $15 an hour is really what we ought to be pushing for, because $15 an hour is the closest number to a livable wage. You can't break it down by families and all of that kind of stuff, but a livable wage for anybody is about $15 an hour. My bill for the last 5 years was just $10.50, and this is an important issue. Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, almost all the states surrounding us have raised their minimum wage above the $7.25 on the federal level, except Oklahoma. And our gross production income level is one of the lowest in the world. And one of the things that would help would be to raise the minimum wage in the state of Oklahoma, and it would help us out immensely. And the argument, well, if many small businesses say, well, if you raise the minimum wage, it's going to run us out of business. Let me tell you something. My undergraduate degree is in accounting, and I worked in accounting. So I like to tell folk, I'm just not talking out of the smoke or the air. This is the fact. If somebody, because most small businesses, they don't have a ton of employees already. So let's establish it. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5, all, and secondly, all of them are part-time. And thirdly, if you're paying all of them minimum wage, let me tell you what happens if you increase their salaries. If you increase their salaries, these are not people who are going to go out and set up a 401k, a retirement plan. They're going to turn around and spend that money in the same type of small businesses that they work in, which will increase the income of those small businesses. And if raising the minimum wage from $7.25 to $10.50 or $15 puts a small business out of business, what I can tell you is that small business had some other problems other than personnel. It's just not possible. Don't listen to that. That's not sound. And you encourage your workers when you do that, when you increase their salaries to a wage that is at least helping them to survive, because they're going to turn around and they're going to save it. They're going to buy some meat twice a week instead of once a week. They're going to do things. And most folk who receive minimum wage do not work 40 hours a week on one job. And I got the research to back it up. These folk are working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to put together enough to be, and these are not college students. These are not high school students. These are people with children who are trying to make it. And we refuse to help them after going through the pandemic and seeing how difficult it was for folk when they lost their jobs. We still are not willing to push our minimum wage to a at least not even a respectable, but to a higher level to help those individuals, particularly in a situation like the state of Oklahoma. That's the first. And let me, I presented that legislation for the last 5 years, twice over in the House and 3 times over in the Senate. And let me tell you how far it has gotten. It has never gotten a hearing in committee, and it has to go to committee before it can come to the floor. So it has never gotten a hearing in committee. I don't know if anyone would argue against the need. Now, you may not want to do it, but the need of increasing the minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. There's nothing else we could do that would be more impactful to the citizens of Oklahoma than to raise the minimum wage, in my mind, at this point. The other one that they did, I had a bill that I presented for the last, probably longer than that one. I've been in 6, 7 years, all the time. The first year I got in, the House of Representatives in the state of Oklahoma rescinded the earned income tax credit, which is the tax credit that goes to people with low income, with children, that Ronald Reagan and Frank Keating, both were Republicans. They initiated this from the federal level. It was President Reagan, and on the state level, it was Governor Keating, both Republicans, who initiated this. And their reason for it from President Reagan was to help folk who were struggling. Now, this is a Republican-backed issue, and yet they came back and rescinded it the second year I was in office, because we had that almost $1 billion deficit, and you got a $1 billion deficit, and what you get from rescinding the earned income tax credit was about $60 million. So take that and hold that up against $1 billion. They did not need to do that. That was just mean-spirited and mean-hearted, and people suffered. And the fact is, out of the House district I was serving, the same House district that's in my Senate district right now, that House district was the one district that was more severely affected than any other district in the state. When they signed that into existence, $500,000, $500,000 was sucked out of my district with one side of the pen, and that was for people who needed that money to do things such as eat, sleep, and get to work when they could on a daily basis. So, but the good news is, now they didn't give me any credit for it, but in this year's budget, they took and put the earned income tax credit back into play. And so we're happy about that. And I'm taking credit for it, because they didn't give me credit for it, but I'm taking credit. I put enough pressure on them over the years that was one of the things that they did. So we were thankful about that. The other thing that, as far as law enforcement is concerned, I had a juvenile sentencing bill that did get a hearing and got out of committee and didn't get heard on the floor. It was simply that we are still incarcerating juveniles, people under the age of 18, with life sentences without parole. If you got someone who's under 18, how can you determine someone whose brain is not fully developed by all scientific and biological studies? Their brain has not fully developed, and you're going to sentence them with a life sentence without parole. That means they're going to be in jail for the rest of their lives, and they never started a life because of some act that they may not fully understand. Now, all I asked them to do was, let's consider this, since they're 18 and we don't know, let's see how they develop. You get a 10-year or 20-year place, and let's call them back up and let's talk to them. Let's see if these young people who were under 18, obviously there were some problems in their lives, now that they've had a chance to live some life, let's see where they are, and do they still need to be kept away from society for an act that they may not have fully understood? I don't care how horrendous it is. Now, I understand what I'm saying, but we have to believe that God is able to help us to overcome something. That, at least that's what the logic I use. And so therefore, we ought to be giving these young people a second chance in life, and at least trying. We're not saying let folk out who have not changed. I am saying give them an opportunity to see if they have changed. And so, and that bill didn't get out of committee. There was a racial impact study bill, that every piece of legislation that increased sentencing or created new sentences would have to go through a process of being examined to see what communities it would impact and how significantly would it impact those communities. Because there are some legislation, and I probably need to jump to one of those right now, that were created just for certain people. And one of those, what we call it, don't have the number on it, but it was called a protest bill, which said if you drive in your car and you drive into a protest and protesters are there, if you, I said accidentally, but if you hit one of them, the government now, the state will now say you can charge that person that you're driving the car, but they hit your car, and any damage you can recoup from them. So yeah, that sounds as crazy as it sounds, because that's exactly what it was. So, because I was thinking to myself, if I knew they were having a protest somewhere in the city, I'm not going that direction. I'm going the opposite. I don't want to get involved. So why am I driving over there in the first place? And then if I'm over there, why would you pass a bill to make it a felony that a protester who is doing what they have a legitimate and constitutional right to do, and that the driver may be, we don't know what the driver is doing at first, but if the driver accidentally, as has happened, hits a gas or brakes and hit one of the pedestrians or protesters, now that driver has the ability to sue that protester. One, to get the protester to get arrested for a felony. Then the driver can sue that protester for any damage that the protester's body had done to the car. Yes, that's as crazy as it sounds. I need you to hit it. If you need the number of the bill, I can get it for you. But that was just that's the kind of stuff that I had to sit in the chamber and listen to and to respond to. I had created a race and equity commission that would have been across the whole state. I thought it was a great idea. You want a commission that looks at all of these issues that have come up over just the last year or so, last 2 years. You have a commission appointed by the Speaker of the House, the Pro Tem of the Senate, the Governor, and the Legislative Black Caucus would all have input as to who could be on this 15 member board, and they would address the issues of racial inequality that had come up across the state. And they could make recommendations then to the Senate, to the House, and to the governor about how we should go about those things. As of right now, you don't have a body, a receptacle that someone who is of African-American descent, who thinks that they were impacted by something that was racially motivated. We don't have anywhere to go except through the legal system. And you do know that Lady Liberty, when she said that with that blindfold on, if she raises it up every now and then, because she can see who's going to jail. And let me say why, because you need to know this, and this is why this is important to me. Oklahoma, African Americans make up 6-7, I'll give you 8% of the population in the state of Oklahoma, 8% total population. In the Department of Corrections, by their records, African Americans make up anywhere from 25 to 35%, not under supervision, but incarcerated individuals. I'm telling you, how can out of 8% of the population, you get 25 to 35% of the incarcerated personnel, and you tell me something's not wrong? Now, listen, I've been Black all my life. Black folk ain't that bad. And we need to recognize that that system has some faults in it that starts with the contact that the police makes in the community, which goes back to the law enforcement issue of the environment. We've got to start getting law enforcement people who come in and who respect the differences that exist. I'll give you an example. I was stopped about 3 or 4 before session started. So it was like November of last year, December of last year. You know what all that happened with George Floyd. And I was stopped right close to home. And the officer pulled me over, and I pulled over because I was wondering why. I wasn't speeding. I knew I wasn't speeding. I had no idea. Roller went down. The officer says, "Can I have your license and insurance?" And I said to the officer, "Can you tell me why you stopped me?" His response back was, "Can I have your license and insurance?" At that moment, I made a decision, because I said to myself, now, this is a good time. I should tell him, well, we're going to have a problem, because until you tell me why you stopped me, I'm not going to give you I was tired and I was ready to get home. So as I'm getting my license and insurance, I'm going to, because I've already kind of tiffed that this guy has not approached me the way that he should have, which I'm making a point. So give me a minute. And as I look for it, I said, well, can you tell me why? And as I'm looking for it and I get my license out, then he says, "Well, your license don't match the car." I said, "Well, what do you mean it does?" Yeah, he said, "No, it doesn't match. This is for another car." And he called the description of the other car that I have in my garage. And I said to him, "Oh, I see. Well, the problem is I'm a state senator, and they give us one tag for all of the vehicles we have. And I got 3 vehicles with the same tag on it." And then he said, oh, okay. And then he leaves. He just leaves. Doesn't say bye. Doesn't say just let me. Let me tell you why I use that example. At the point when he said to me, when I said to him, "No, I need you to tell me what you're stopping me for," that's what happens so many times, because law enforcement as a whole is taught to control the situation. And when there is some sign of defiance, I don't care how minute it is, some of them take that very seriously. And me not obeying him could have triggered a moment that de-escalation would have been needed, because suppose I wasn't having a good day. Suppose Bishop Morgan had called me and jumped on me about something I didn't do. I was mad at the world. And I know I'm not going to give you my license until a week of it. Next day, I got to get out of the car. He's going to try to arrest me, and all over something that all that officer. And I'm telling you, that's not an isolated event. most of the time law enforcement has this idea in their head that they have to be in charge of the situation, and you can tell the ones who don't, the ones who, if they got to give you a ticket, they're very nice about it, they're very decent about it. They tell you when you stop, sir, I stopped you because you were speeding, and this, you going 65 and a 45, and so can I have your license? Well, at that point, I can talk to him, but I'm about to go to court because I'm not gonna beat this thing. But he was nice. It was nothing for me. I can't get mad at him because I'm driving fast. Now we got a part in that. But on the other hand, he is a trained public servant. And his first job is to protect not only us from people who would do bad things from us, but he is to protect us for our rights, and our rights exist when the point that we come in contact with it. So I just want to show that, because that happens, and it could have, and I guarantee you, I know people who have escalated from that situation to situations where yes, we did have to go to court. And so that was it. So racial impact, and so those were just a couple of the bills that I proposed that did not see the light of day. And obviously you can tell from my bill list that I had a bill to help the Clara Louisville Civil Rights Center that's being built in Oklahoma City. Maps of money, the city money is going in, but they needed money for organization, and didn't see the light of day. Although they gave money to Greenwood, which I'm happy about that, but it would seem that they would have tried to help Oklahoma City. And these are the kind of things that I need to do a better job of getting the information back out to my community, so they can call their other legislators and call the governor and say, listen, you're not addressing the issues of our community, because who do you have in our community in the Senate except me? I'm the only Black person that represents that area, and that's important that I get the backing of our community. And so that was it. Just one other bill I want to talk about, and then maybe some others that you come up with that I thought was very important. That was House Bill 1775, which in essence, I was on the floor. Matter of fact, if you want to see the clip of me debating it, I can send that to you. And the protest bill, I debated on both of those, because I made it a point that, listen, if you're going to do something that impacts Black folks, you're going to hear from at least one Black person while you're doing it. So, but 1775, it is, if you got a copy of it and read it, you really would have to look beyond the words to get what it was really going for. They want to talk about the critical race theory, and I'll bring that in. That's not in the bill, but that's the term that people use about this bill, because the bill starts off in when you start enumerating stuff, they said no one has the right to say that any race is inherently superior than any other race. Now that sounds like a good thing to say, but my problem is why you need to say it in the first place. I take that for granted that no race is superior to any other race. Yeah, y'all wanted to make it that way through slavery, but that didn't work, and we overcame that. And so obviously God has made all of us equal with equal abilities. Some of us just miss our opportunities, and some of those opportunities have been snatched away because of government interference in our lives. And now you want to say that in school that you're going to hold it against a teacher for teaching that slavery existed. That's exactly what they want to do. They want to prevent the teaching of that slavery existed, and that slavery was an institution that suppressed the God-given and constitutional rights of human beings. They want, to act like slavery wasn't existed. And let me tell you the reason. This is, and I love talking about that, because I was in the chamber with this guy who was the author, and he said the reason, because I asked him, I said, well, what makes this bill, and why is it so significant that you want to do this? It doesn't make any sense. We all hold these things to be true. We ought to all hold these things to be true. Obviously we don't, but we all hold these things to be true. And why is, he said, I don't want our little children, when he said our, forgive me, but he was talking about white children. I don't want our white children coming home feeling the weight of a trauma that they have been, when they've been taught about slavery, that they have been accused of being a racist, and our children are coming home with the trauma and weight of that. And that, when you're in question mode, you have to ask the question. But the thing that's going through my mind was, well, I wonder if how do you think African-American kids come home every day from the teaching of that, and you don't want to protect them, but you want to protect them. And on top of that, your child, those white children, this fact, have benefit from the privilege of their race. And so what happened in slavery has impacted them in this moment right now in a positive way. Don't fool yourself. slavery and the Industrial Revolution in the North, with cotton and tobacco in the South. Listen, it was one of the foundations of the economic basis for the United States of America. And so I told you I got a degree in accounting. Ask me if I could take away one expense off of my income statement, so to help my business, what would it be? I said personnel, because if I can have personnel to work for free, a little or nothing, then I'm gonna make a profit. I could be the worst businessman in the world. I'm gonna make a profit if I don't have to pay folk to produce the goods that I sell. And that's what slavery was. It was inhumane. It was thoughtless. And so that's a problem when you create legislation that talks about those things. And so where the critical race theory comes in, that's a term that was created, and I cannot think of the lady's name, but she created that to say, when we talk about American history, you can't help but talk about the fact that one, the white folk brought slaves in and made them work for free. White folks saw land they wanted, they took it from the Native Americans, and the manifest destiny of I can't think of the president's name, Monroe, I believe. Manifest destiny was, we gonna manifest our destiny upon everybody in between us and the Pacific Ocean to take it, because we believe we own it. It was no thought about that. Native Americans had no concept of owning land, and so you come in and have no county court clerk that they filed their land ownership on. They just used the land because it was there, and they didn't mind who else used it as long as you took care of it. And we come in with new ideas and thoughts that just think about that they couldn't understand. And so since they can't understand it, they're going to respond back in the way they know how to protect it. And so we brought in more folk and bigger guns, and we took what we wanted. That, if that's critical of our history, then so be it. But we've got to tell history as it is, not as we wanted it to be. And that impacts us today, because the privilege that some races have right now, white people in particular, the privilege that they have is based on the origins of this country and how it was created. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, parenthetically women, are created equal. It was a lie when they wrote it. They knew that. They knew it was a lie. And we are still trying to make that right. And so these type of legislation, which you saw, this particular bill, 1775, the one I just got through talking about, was prevalent all across the United States. I mean, I think it last count, it was like 30, 35 states that had a piece of legislation like that. So just stop for a minute and think, if that's what they're pushing, something is going on. It has something to do, again, with the last presidential administration, that person who shouldn't have been in office in the first place. It has a lot to do with that has opened the door. Now, let's don't blame him, because it existed. All he did was come in and uncover the bed. It was there. But it was there all the time, and we need to fight that. And so it is a struggle. It was a very difficult year for me, a difficult session, because, like I said, I was in protest mode most of the time. And then most of the time when I stood to have to say anything, it was always trying to get them to understand that, listen, everything you do is not right, and you just look at it from the standpoint of other individuals. And what a difficult year, one of the worst years I've had in legislature, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'll say this, and I really take questions then, is that I did mention that I got called to be an interim pastor earlier this year. And I'm gonna tell you, the fact is, Bishop Turner, I'm gonna tell you, if the Lord hadn't opened that door up for me, I was at a point, because I pastored for 30 years. That was all I had done. A few years in accounting, but 30 years of pastoring. And COVID had me. I lost my wife about 4 years ago, and so I'm home by myself during COVID, and it was very easy for me to retract into myself and think, man, I'm 60 something, 65 years old. When it first 66 years old and started, and said, I need to sit down and rest and do nothing, And the Lord said, what you doing? What you doing? And it was like the Lord started listing all the stuff that the Lord had blessed me to attain in my life, and kept asking me, what you doing? What you doing? I will hold that, listen, what we do as the church is one of the most significant things that we can do, because we give hope. I received that hope myself from the experience of I have experienced as a member of the church, and my belief in God who came and saved my life, because I think that I would have died. As I tell my folk at Mount Carmel, everybody who's dead is not graveyard dead. You got some folk who are walking around, they just hadn't been told of a cemetery spot ready for them, and they need to go lay down. So we need to recognize that we have something that is greater than us. What brought our foreparents to this moment is the same thing that's going to carry us from this moment to where we need to be. So I threw that in, but I will take any questions on any, and I know maybe some talk about managed care. If you want me to talk a little bit about that, I will be more than happy to talk about that. But Bishop Morgan, I think I'm at a good time now because I've spent a lot of your time already. So I want to.
Dr. Young, you brought up a lot of good stuff. I'm glad you brought up the House Bill 1775. Me and my sister were actually talking about critical race theory yesterday, and that bill. One question I have for you is, what type of opposition did you see to that bill here in Oklahoma when it was being passed in the House?
Well, listen, that's a good question, because you would think that we would be more informed, and I'm starting with the elected officials, because that bill did start in the House, and by the time I knew about it, it was already on the House floor. It had gone through committees on the House floor, and they were passing it when I got a notice about the particular piece of legislation, and that it was probably coming over to the Senate. So part of the problem is the process, and I fault myself and those of us who are elected. We've got to do a better job. I'm not taking all the blame as elected officials, but we need to do a better job of staying on top of some of those. We don't have the organization yet. We don't have the foundation yet, that we have groups that monitor that legislation, that monitors legislation from the creation of it, not when it gets passed, but when it is submitted as a potential bill. We don't have the support group. We don't have an entity that looks at those types of legislation that impact African Americans specifically. And so we have to dig in for ourselves, and that's hard to do, particularly when I just listed you all the bills I'm trying to get passed on my own, and then other crazy legislation like that I need to be aware of. But we don't. Oklahoma Policy Institute, we need something like that. Or Oklahoma Policy Institute needs to create a African American section in it, where they have someone who monitors bill that impacts Hispanics, Native Americans, African Americans, so that those groups can respond to it, so that I'm able then to send out to you, Brother Cliff, a notice that says, hey, this bill is coming up and you need to call somebody, the governor, your legislator, lieutenant governor, whoever you need to call at the head of this committee, and have all those names. And we have access to that, and we can do it. And I did some of that because my person, she makes me call her chief of staff because she does all the work, but we have sent some of that stuff out to people, and people have responded. But we've got to do more of that, because we've got to have the backing of the constituents to make stuff happen. If I got 40 or 50 pastors to come up to the Capitol one day and sit up in the chamber above me, and I got up and introduced them and said that these 40, 50 pastors from Northeast Oklahoma City and Northwest Oklahoma are here because they believe in the process, but they also want to oversee the process and make sure that the process is going along the way it ought to go along. That would be impactful to those folk on that floor. And I've been thinking about that, just a show of force, like when the teachers came out. If we could ever do that, it would be impactful, I think, for the issues that face us, and our issues are somewhat different.
Okay. I have a question, Dr. Young.
Sure.
So this past legislative session, or the one that we're in now, it seems like our communities got hit back to back to back. With House Bill 1775 that we just talked about, with House Bill 2273, which we really haven't touched on, which is the one that makes it a misdemeanor violation for the public online thing concerning officers. So you can't record and post on any social media anything concerning officers if you're in a traffic stop. In addition to that, the House Bill 1674 that you talked about earlier, that talks about being guilty for if there's a traffic obstruct. and you happen to be slapped with a misdemeanor if that's the case. So art, and most of those, I think we can all agree, negatively affects the Black community more than any other community. And so my question is, what impact does the Congressional Black Caucus for Oklahoma, what impact do you all have while these bills are going on? Are you just overlooked, or what, or is there more support from the communities that you guys need in order to have a louder voice? Um, what is needed?
Okay. Great, great question. And my answer to is all of those things, all of those things. But remember again, because I think it starts with, it's the makeup of the legislative body. And remember, you got 101 representatives and 5 African American. That's all. So that speaks volumes right there, because again, you start off so far deep in the hole. You got 2 African Americans out of 48 in the Senate. The Oklahoma Legislative Black Caucus is made up of 7, those 7 folk. And so if they don't listen, they don't listen to Democrats because they have so many numbers that they don't have to. My caucus wanted to vote yes on the redistricting because they asked us what we thought about it. It didn't change anything. Redistricting, the way they presented it to us, in my mind, was we're not gonna hurt y'all as bad as we could. We got we got everything we need, and so we're not gonna hurt y'all. And so we're gonna ask y'all what y'all want, act like we like y'all, and everything, and then expect us to vote for it. And most of them voted for it, except me, because I voted no. Because you're not doing anything for us. You're not doing anything for Northeast Oklahoma City by not taking some districts that could have been, some districts that were gerrymandered so that a Republican could win. They could have fixed some of those districts. They didn't. They did not. You know, they will talk about 1 or 2 districts that they changed, but did not add any possibility of changing the numbers in the Senate, which I don't blame them. You got the power, you keep the power. I want to add this, George, very quickly to what you were saying. Remember the bill that was passed, it passed in more states, but in Georgia in particular, when they said that if you gave somebody some water who's standing in line, or gave them food who's standing in line to vote, that you could be charged with a felony. And we all thought that was horrendous, and it passed in Georgia that you can't do that. And somebody asked me, well, y'all are facing some of those kind of bills. I said, not voter restriction as much. We did have one bill, not voter restriction as much, but why would they change anything when they want every county, all 77 counties they want? Why would they create a problem when they're already, so they're not being nice to us by not creating those bills? Get the idea, man. They are maintaining their superiority, and that's the only thing that matters to them. And so it's difficult for us to stop some things, Joy. It is, I hope you hear the frustration in my voice. It is difficult for us to have a voice, for the Oklahoma Legislative Black Caucus to stop anything. We can speak up for it, we can speak against it. And that's what I said. 9 times out of 10, if it's something that was not good, by the time it goes to the Senate, George Young's gonna get up and say something about it, and it may not. Try to keep my stuff nice, but sometimes it gets ugly. So that's the only thing we have. That's the only thing we have. And to try to keep our community informed and try to, again, talk about the importance of not only registering to vote, but to vote, because that's the only way we can change things. And it's difficult. It's difficult, George. So I think the Black Caucus did a good job under Representative Regina Goodwin, and now starting with Representative Jason Lowe. I think both of them are doing good jobs in presenting the issues, and that's all we can do. And yes, we do need more input from the community to help us in some of those issues. So back to, just imagine if all of that Senate chamber, those upper rooms where people sit in the upper parts of it, will fill up with Black folk like they would fill up with teachers. Just think about that for a moment. They'd have to call out more state troopers. They'd have to do everything. But what a statement that would make to those legislators that, listen, we watching you. And it's our responsibility to say to them, we're watching you, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that our rights are not only preserved, but are reinstated, that you have tried to take away from us. So it's difficult to make anything happen, but I am proud of the stances that we have taken personally, and the stances we've taken as the Oklahoma Legislative Black Caucus. And our stuff won't get into Daily Oklahoma, but the Black Chronicle and the Herald, Oklahoma Herald, do a good job of at least promoting the thoughts and ideas and the things that we go through, which I think is good. And that's the benefit of having two weekly local papers to get the word out about, because otherwise Daily Oklahoman is in bed with the Republicans at the Capitol. So they all work together. So am I saying stuff that's wrong? I probably shouldn't have said that, but anyway, it's true.
Senator, should there be I would say a bi-weekly or monthly meeting with the preachers so that they can get it out to the members? Or is that something you can form? Is that something we need to do?
Well, part of the problem is during session, that's going to be difficult to do because we never know when we're going to call in the session. But even with that, let me start all over again. Morgan, yes. Let me answer your question. Yes, that's something that we could do. That's something we need to do. That's something that we need to you are absolutely right. And now you are placing upon me some real weight and guilt, because you are absolutely right. And it's not the first time that has been brought. And so that's something now that I'm going to have to work on, because you have publicly challenged me to do something that I ought to be doing in the first place. So, that's your job to say, hey, what this seems like this would help. So I will be working on that. It has been difficult because during session it's difficult to do, but you already have, and I could attend, or somebody could attend the meetings of any of the different denominations that they have periodically. And I know for a fact that if I asked Overseer Roseberry to give me 15, 20 minutes to talk about an issue, he's not going to say no. I know that if I ask Pastor Reed to give me 15, 20 minutes to talk about it, he's not going to say no. So getting them all together is one thing that would be very helpful, but at least making the attempt to show up, particularly during session or right before session and right after session, to kind of report on what has happened, what might be going to happen, and where we would need your help. You have just put me on challenge with everything else that I'm going to start talking that up and see if we can do that, because obviously you're asking for that. You're saying you would like to have some information like that. So, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just earlier in the week, we had a notice from I call him Pop Reed,
right.
From Pop Reed to show up at his church yesterday for a Promise Keepers meeting.
Right.
And I mean, and there were preachers from all over the city.
Right.
And they all showed up. So I'm wondering why we're not doing this for your behalf and for our behalf in the community.
Yeah. And I'm a preacher. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you, I get along with most of those pastors and the phone calls I get from them. So you're not making a stretch. It's just the opportunity we need to access. So I'm talking to my chief of staff as soon as I get off here, and we'll start working on that soon. I know we'll have some town hall, but we need to have a periodic kind of time where at least if you want to come and hear an update, you can get it.
And show your support toward you. I'm sorry.
Young, this has been so informative. You have shared so much information that we definitely and we really need in our community, and we want to try to entertain as many questions as we want. There may be someone out there that wants to put in the chat, so we have Joy and Cliff and Stacia and our technical director Cody and Stacia. They'll try to get those questions to you. But you mentioned that 8%, I believe, of the population is African Americans, and then but 20%,
25 to 35
are incarcerated.
Right.
And we know this has been going on, Senator, for a long time. Why hasn't it been changed?
Because the system has not changed.
Going on a long time.
The system has not changed, and the system is built upon that very thing. We need bodies in the criminal justice system to be able to support the criminal justice system. Fact of the matter, Oklahoma has taken it a step further. They backed off a little bit, but they had for-profit prisons, and they guaranteed those for-profit prisons a certain amount of beds that they would fill if they took on this responsibility. So if you're going to guarantee a certain amount of criminals, you got to go out and look for them. And if you can't find them legally, you're going to find them illegally, because you're going to do something. I'm not taking that back. I'm not taking it back. And so that's why that's why we had to do away with now, and I don't believe anybody ought to ingest anything in the drugs into their system, but some kid with 2 joints on him, an 18, 19-year-old kid with a couple of joints, and you're going to give him 10 years? What kind of mess is that? That's the kind of mess that helps that criminal justice system survive. That's what it is. And so when you start hitting that, they start hitting back with stuff like this particular bill that Joy brought up, that protest bill, when I can put you in jail for a felony for a long period of time because you are protesting and somebody drives their car into the group, or they charge you with trying to stop their progress on a busy street. So it is built, that system is built for that, and it's always been built for that. And that, what's her name, who wrote the book, The New Jim Crow, was absolutely right. I've read that, and it is an offshoot of slavery. Strike that, not an offshoot, it's a direct descendant of slavery. The criminal justice system is a direct descendant of slavery, because when slavery was cut out, the very next thing they did was start putting in laws for vagrancy. You don't have a job for black folks. How you gonna have a job when you just got out of slavery? You just was freed, and now you don't even know how this thing really works. And the first thing they did was put in laws that they could come and arrest black folks and put them on a farm so that they could work and get free labor still, as they always had done before. And the system we're in today, I'm not taking it back, is a descendant of that very system that came out of slavery. And particularly, we know the folk we can go get to do the work, and we know where they are. And so I make this, my district goes over to the Catholic school on 50th. And I said to myself, if they parked as many police cars outside of the schools in my district as they parked over there at Bishop McGinnis, if they parked as many police cars and start stopping folk who come through there, I guarantee you they get the same amount of arrests or more than they would with stopping them over in my community, because you emphasize and you place the folk where it's not where you have records that crime is more rampant than anything else. It's the people that you believe are committing the crimes, or you want to believe are committing the crimes, and you can tell that the arrest records will back that up. So yes, there is a problem. We are working on criminal justice reform, but that's going to take a while, because that is ingrained in the very culture of the United States of America. It is just part of it, and we need to continue to fight that with every breath that we can. Because I'm not saying letting folk out who break laws. I remind you, I'm from Memphis. I know you need police. We need police in Memphis. And so you need law enforcement. I don't have anything against it, but it's how law enforcement is practiced that I have a problem with. And I think we are at least causing some conversation. We're not where we ought to be yet, but we're causing some conversation.
Also, Senator Young, we had I want to touch on this. I don't something that's been in forefront quite a bit lately, and you're so well-rounded. I know you can touch on it. I don't know how much you'll want to, but the questions ask, what is your take on the Tulsa Greenwood situation? And along with that, part B, did our governor indeed sign something that they didn't want this to be taught in our schools or something like that?
Yes, and two things. Listen, Tulsa Greenwood, 1921, it was not a celebration, it was a commemoration. And from all indications, I was not feeling very well, so I didn't get, I was invited, let me quickly say that, I was invited to several of the events up there, but I just did not feel up to driving up to Tulsa, none of the weekend events. So I missed most of them, but I got a lot of it online. The commemoration is just the beginning. It's 100 years ago, and we're just getting to having a nationwide kind of come to truthfulness meeting about what happened in Tulsa. So we've got a lot of work to do. Now, there were some problems, we're gonna have some problems when you have events of that magnitude. And so I don't, the exact problems, I think the descendants should be recognized and given whatever, you know, that they should be given. And I think that ought to be part of the process. But I think the fact that we had it, that we got it started, and just because we had a few missteps is not going to prevent us from using that as a way of celebrating our history, because we need to celebrate those folk who gave their lives in Tulsa. So your question though was, did the governor sign something to not teach that? Technically, the governor did not. What the governor did sign was that Bill 1775, which gives the teachers the ability behind law not to teach it the way it actually occurred. You can talk. Yeah, we had slavery. Slavery lasted from whatever to 1865. So 1619, 1865. And yeah, it's existed. And yeah, it was a bad thing. And so, yeah, and they grew, and normally it was around cotton and tobacco. And so, yeah, that's all you teach, that's fine. But you got to teach more than that. The remnants of that create the problems that we are dealing with today. And redlining, the government was part of it. As the government was part of slavery, the government was a part of redlining. In other words, we're not going to lend Black folks money to buy houses in these areas because we're trying to keep those areas white. So the government and the government, the banks, every institution was involved in that. We are suffering from the remnants and the results of slavery. And you're trying to tell me, let's don't talk about that. Let's don't talk about why we're in the situation we're in today. Yeah, opportunities from African Americans were snatched from them by the government, not by just Ku Klux Klan, by the government. And we need to realize that. And really and truly, the conversation about reparations, I know you didn't ask that, but the conversation about reparations ought to be had, if nothing else, talked about, because it is a legitimate conversation. Because how can you put tell anybody I'd love to see someone do some research on the businesses that existed on Tulsa, Greenwood, Black Wall Street before 1921. Take those businesses, the amount of income that you could project from all of those businesses, and project the loss of income, the loss of capital, the loss of capital appreciation over 100 years. Suppose you owned a business that was in Tulsa, Greenwood, and it didn't get burned down, and your business still continues to flourish like it was flourishing. Someone said someone had a Black hotel in Tulsa, Greenwood, and they said, if it hadn't burned down, this particular person could have been the next Hilton. They could have been. Who knows that wouldn't have happened? They could have been the next Hilton because they had the foundation for it. They were already doing. And you could take 100 years from there to now and have an investment that you pass down to your children and to other people in that community. It would have made Tulsa one of the greatest cities in the world. One of the greatest. And they missed that opportunity because they allowed their greed and their evilness to overtake them, and it was supported by every level of government.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Just a comment, and then I'm going to read some comments from Facebook. But as we were talking about House Bill 1775, it's very vague, but it almost takes away the potency of history, of teaching what happened. And from my understanding of reading it, or reading the portion of it that I was able to, it definitely seems like it takes away the potency of that reality.
Yes.
About our history as African Americans here in this country. However, we do have a question from Tracy McDaniel from Facebook Live. And this is the question: how do we form a coalition of minority groups to fight this system? How do we form a coalition of minority groups to fight the system?
Did you say that was from Tracy McDaniels?
Yes.
I wonder if that's Mr. Kip Tracy McDaniels.
Yes, it is.
I don't know why he's asking me, because he has the ability to do those things on his own. He's got much more knowledge than I have. Let me just go on and set it. He's trying to set me up. What a great idea. First, what a great idea How do we do it? I think it's just going to take, and I'm getting challenged. I don't know, all these years of life, I guess I passed it too long or something, all these years of life. But that's another challenging thing that Brother Tracy, I would love to work with you on. And just as I want to work with Brother Morgan on this thing of getting pastors information periodically, we can form those groups. And I think it's very important that we form those groups, because it's those types of groups that help push through legislation and have a focus on certain pieces of legislation. So we had a group that looked at African-American issues that come up that we know are present, the things that we have, and research. And there's a lot of research out there. I think it's very possible. And so, this year is a little different because I'm hearing some things a little different, and it's really making my mind spin that this is something outside of being a legislator. I think is very important, and I'm remembering it. Matter of fact, I wrote down Morgan, and I'm writing down Tracy your ideas, and coming back to both of you to talk about this later, because I think that's ultimately important. Me out there yelling on the Senate floor and telling folk they're wrong because that doesn't even make sense, and why y'all are saying that, and all of y'all are benefiting from the privilege of being white, and yet you want to try to erase history and all of its ugliness. That's why we are here. You want to miss the point of why history is important, so that we can build on it. And so that we need to be having those groups who come in behind me and who are pushing the same thing. And so I think that's a great idea. And I think it's something long past in our community. And so I would love to see some groups erupt, and I'd be more than happy to be part of it to push that along, because I think and we ought to write more. WRITE. We should write more. We should have more op-eds. We should have more. And if we can't get them in the papers, we need to have a way to put them online. We need to have a way to share them one with another. But we need to write more. And I've been trying to do that. And I have a newsletter that goes out that I try to spend a lot of time writing my thoughts about what has happened on a lot of different things. And we try to get that out at least once a month. But we and try to post on Facebook, not that other junk that folk be posting on Facebook. I post the stuff about what I'm thinking, what's going on, why I felt like this happened, because I've been elected not to do to sit around and let stuff happen, but at least vote on stuff. But then secondly, I have some responsibility to say, why do I think things turned out the way they turned out? I'm there, so I have a firsthand view of what happens, and that's very helpful. And so again, and I started off with that, is the makeup of the legislature that's going to continue doing that, but they know who I am, because when they see me grab the mic, they know what's coming, because they know the issue must be something that impacts my community.
I wonder if along those lines, if we could somehow partner with groups such as Black Lives Matter, other groups that have successfully formed these large protests. I remember last summer when George Floyd passed, there was the largest number of protesters that I've ever seen in my lifetime living here in Oklahoma. So these same House bills getting passed, to me, should cause almost as much outrage. And so how do we form these types of big, big person protests where we are in those meetings, we are showing up with our signs around the Capitol when these bills pass that negatively affects our communities? I feel like it's almost outrageous, some of the things that have passed. And so how do we form, kind of like Tracy McDaniel was saying, how do we form those and get the word out so that people can come and let their voice be heard, and also reach out to those groups who have already successfully had those types of protests in our community?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Again, and part of it, because first thing I would say was, well, first let's work with those groups that are already doing it. Those several groups that came out on the Capitol steps to go against the protest bill, and they're trying to get signatures to do a state question to rescind that bill. And I think they're trying to include 1775 also to rescind those bills also, because the citizens of Oklahoma can petition the state to put on the ballot a statute, put on a question to say, do we want this bill to remain in effect or not? If we get enough signatures, we can put that on the ballot, and people said, no, we don't want it. And when that comes to, just like we changed things with the low-level drug possession charges, that we got those throughout because of 780, and then using that funding to help. We hadn't quite got the funding yet, but it's still in the work of treatment and other things. So we can. And but you said something. There are those other groups that have made a big splash, but there's nothing wrong with creating new groups. And those groups may have a special bent, may have a special direction they want to go in. So if Joy, you wanted to create a group that dealt with issues, a particular issue, what's most significant to you, that would be fine, because you would bring some expertise to the larger conversation of the mass protest. And Tracy, obviously, education would be one of the things that I could see him wanting to do something with. But imagine having a group of African Americans who are not just educators, but who are activists in education, not just advocates, but people who are pushing things in education, particularly along policy lines. Whether or not they were successful about changing anything or passing a law is irrelevant. What really is important is having an oppositional voice heard. All of those bills I talked to you about earlier that I had passed, I use those bills all the time as sledgehammers, because they were not passed, but I can use them to explain, one, where I'm coming from, and two, what's missing in our state. And so that's what's important, is having our voice heard. The more folk who hear what you're going through, the more folk who can experience what you're going through, the more folks who are going to jump on board. And so we need to have those organizations. And that sounds like, I'm now that's third time that's kind of come up. So it's something that I really got to think about, because y'all are pushing me now. So.
We had one comment from Facebook Live, and it was along the time when you were talking about the mass incarceration of African Americans, and it was from Bishop.
Well, Joe, you froze up.
Yeah.
To acknowledge, hear our voice, and that was that's so true concerning.
Joy froze up.
Joy, you may have to repeat it. I think you froze.
Right. I can make up some stuff you could have said, Joe, but I don't think they want to hear me do that, because I am a preacher. I can't make up some stuff. I didn't say that. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions though? Because we did talk. I want to talk briefly. Do I have a minute, Bro Morgan?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Sandra.
I think the other thing, we get back to Joy's question. I think the other thing that's important, and that I'm not going to claim to be an expert on, but I need to. I was a chaplain for many years, and so I do have some healthcare in my background. But one of the things that's important is this managed care deal that's come out. Last year the governor came out and selected 4 companies: Donna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United, and I can't think of the 4th one. It's 4 companies, and they were going to be used as the 4 companies to the thought was, at first we thought, was to accept this new 200,000 new folk who are coming on the expansion. Because of expansion, we voted in, which is a great thing. We need more folk covered with healthcare, but the governor did not have, he thought, the right to assign 4 companies to do that. And that's part of what the Supreme Court struck down by striking down Soonacare, the Soonacare as a vehicle for the governor. Let me say this, it is not gone away, because people think, oh, we won and it's gone away. It's not. It has been slowed down extremely. So it's not going to go in effect this fall, that's for sure, because we're going to have to go back to the board and design something else that will be able to take care of these new 200,000 folk. And the other thought was that every individual who's on any type of government healthcare plan was going to be fed into the managed care system. So keep that in mind. But at first it was just I think it's like 200,000 new folk who'll be covered. They were going to have to choose one of those 4 companies to do their health care, but eventually child care, everything is going to go through one of the managed care, and some of the home health agencies are already. Matter of fact, I received from Blue Cross and Blue Shield a packet saying, do you want to choose us as your hospitalization, your health care carrier? Because they still are operating under the concept that what the governor said was legal, and we really don't know what's going to happen with that. So managed care is not as solid as it was a few minutes ago. I had some problems with it from the beginning because of taking it from Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, which was handling most of the stuff, and creating these 4 companies. An agreement that the governor did, he did not include the legislators, and I said it, they still wouldn't include us, but at least they could have asked the legislature, and they didn't. And so this is going back to the drawing board. So that's not complete right now. So it's kind of up in the air. It's not going to stop the coverage that's already in, but it's probably going to slow down those new people who we passed that state question for. It's probably going to slow them down for getting health care.
Okay. All right.
Senator.
Joy, did she unfreeze? Did you want to repeat what you were asking?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. My laptop connection broke, but I was just reading a comment that we had on Facebook Live, and it was around the time when you were talking about the mass incarceration of Black people. And it was by Bishop Aaron Scruggs, and he said, we're in a place of pain and agony, and no one wants to acknowledge or hear our voice. So he was just echoing kind of what the sentiments based off of what you were saying.
I like that, and it bothers me now as we even talk about it, because it is, and Bishop Scruggs, your words were painful to me, because it is true. We have experienced this journey as African Americans, and we have fought hard. We have overcome so much. We're just a wonderful, and to still be continuously having to remind folk that we are human beings is just debilitating. And so you can't give up, though. And that's why, I kind of found a new voice with the ugliness that was in the session this time. Bishop Morgan, and I think the presiding bishop was on for a few minutes ago. I didn't curse, but I'm telling you right now, they brought me close to it, because it was difficult. It was difficult to be civil when these kind of things happen. Because George, you were talking about the bill didn't seem, that 1775. If you read it, it doesn't seem like it's just horrible, terrible, until you get underneath it and listen to someone who's promoting it and what they're trying to do. We don't care about Black children and what they're going through. What we care about is we don't want our white kids to have trauma, and we live with trauma all the time. It's to be an African American in the United States of America is trauma producing. So just know that it's trauma producing. And so we have overcome, we have fought. I am so proud of our people. I'm proud of my district. I'm proud of all the things that we do, because, and obviously we're right back in this struggle again. I thought I'd leave the Senate with some good stuff done. I thought first year it looked like some possibilities, but you know what? Like, I'm gonna have to stay and fight some more.
Senator, it seems like, let me ask you a question. I think we're probably getting short on time, but it seems to me there are more Caucasian or white officers in your district than there is. When I come to that side and I go to the northwest side, I see Black officers, but when I come to our district, I see white officers and no Black officers.
Right.
What's the problem?
Yeah, I don't know it's a problem. I don't know it's a problem, but I was smiling because I have sat with officers from all African-American officers in particular from all over the city. And, there's a lot of, they have a lot of points of view on that. Some of them this is not just one, this is several folk at the same point of view. We get treated worse by our own people.
Yeah. I don't think that was it.
And so one, we come over there and we try to do what we do, and it's difficult for us to go
Right.
over there. We don't get the respect that we get over there. We have to walk a little differently over there than we do in other places. I'm just telling you some of the things they said to me, and I respect them for that because I understand they have a very difficult job. And so, and then on top of that, you got this thing of, and I kind of got this out of the conversation as I think back on it. If you got a Spring Lake division in the African American community, you don't want every officer over there to be black. So
right, definitely not.
Purposefully have some diversity over there for the reason of trying not to say we just gonna send y'all the people who look like y'all. Which I don't know if I have a problem with that. Let me be honest with you. If they were willing to come, I'd rather have more black officers because I know that it is at least a bit more helpful to have someone who has experienced what you are going through than someone who has no idea about what you're going through and not getting the training to understand what you're going through. So that it is a problem, and it's not a problem that's answerable by me. I made that word answerable, but it is a problem that we do need to be aware of. But as you talk to officers, they will tell you the same thing. So I don't know if it's a signing. I don't know if it's all a signing. Like I said, some of it I know it is choice, and so, but Morgan, we have to deal with that as it approaches us. So
I wish to talk to a few, and then they said that they were assigned to the Northwest side, a few black officers, and then the other one said that they couldn't get over there, and they felt like the Caucasian officers could control the Northeast side better. But what you're saying, I believe is true, that we give our own a harder time.
Right. That's what they said.
And, I know. And then they give us a harder time.
Right. In turn.
Stopped by both.
Right.
For speeding, and one would say the Caucasian officer slow down and go on. Right. The other one, man, he did me pretty tough. He didn't give me a ticket, but he drilled me pretty good.
Gotcha. No, that's one of those things. And we still got to work on it. But I think we're getting different types of law enforcement personnel that are coming in. And so I'm hopeful that this conversation about law enforcement that's happening, because I'm on the Oklahoma City task force for law enforcement. I'm not real satisfied with how it's going, but at least it's a start. And they're looking at the Citizens Advisory Board to regroup that, to reshape that, so that we'll have some ability to have some way of lodging complaints. Yeah. And so the conversation is happening, which is a good thing. But Mark Morgan, it's a good thing.
Good.
We would like to thank everyone for. I'm sorry. Close the feedback. We'd like to thank everyone for attending the Young Adult Ministry workshop on today. We would like to send a special thank you to our Senator George Young. We are young adults, but we love to be civically engaged, and for you to let us know how we can help build and shape our communities. So again, thanks to everyone who joined on Zoom, through Facebook Live, through YouTube. If you are on those platforms, feel free to share this information. Dr. Young gave us a lot of great information so that we can take back and share with our communities on how we can become involved. And I'm saying that greeting from our district president, Sister Blaine Morgan. She wanted me to thank everyone. Now I'm going to turn it over to the Minister of Protocol, Overseer Clifford Morgan, for our offertory appeal. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Joy. We do want to recognize that Joy is the National Young Adult Ministries president, national body. So we appreciate her, and along with our district, which is Blaine. So everybody, and again, Dr. Young, you have been awesome again for the second year. And we just, man, we can't appreciate you enough for so readily accepting our invitation. And it's whenever I call on you, you're there for us, and we appreciate it with a smile. And listen, man, you just informed us so well. And I do want to, just before we make that appeal that Joy asked us to do, I want District Bishop Bishop Turner to just ask him if he has words to come and remark right now at this point. Bishop Turner.
Thank you, Overseer. I tell you, it's really been, it's been a great honor for me. And I think we have all been very privileged. We've had a privileged opportunity to listen to the Honorable Dr. George Young here this afternoon. On behalf of all of us, I just wanted to say thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for a very spiritually and socially enlightening afternoon here. What all you had to say and share with us on the state of our state and how we can help better serve our community. I wrote a few things, and I'm not going to prolong the time, but I certainly want to use the resources that District 6 has on our website, our social media outlets to assist the agenda, your agenda toward the communities. I've even personally, sometimes I receive notices and policies and laws that are getting passed or wanting to get passed that sometimes the language that's out there, sometimes we kind of get tripped up behind it. So maybe we can try to utilize those resources as well to try to help in these areas. All of what has been said, the idea, some of the questions, it just had me thinking. And so we want to do what we can do. And lastly, I just want to say regarding listening to all the law enforcement stuff, and I'm involved in law enforcement, and my plan was to retire this year. The first of the year, I had planned on retiring from the Department of Public Safety, where I've been a chaplain there for the last 10 years. But I'm kind of holding back on that because I can see there's so much work to do. I ride with these guys. I speak with them. I counsel them, and let me tell you, some of what you all have spoken on, I hear, and I can be a tool, and I try to do this as often as I can. So we got a lot of work to do, and anything that we can do. I'm here in Arizona, but we feeling the pain, the same pains that you're feeling in Oklahoma. And so we just do what we can do. But I am so grateful to you, Dr. Young, and for sharing your time with us. And we can't thank you enough, but we certainly appreciate you for all that you've done. And that Memphis came out, that it came out. And so we just so thank you. And I look forward to meeting you. Thank you all. You did a wonderful job, Yam, Blaine, Joy, and all of you. Thank you so much. And we're going to ask that our pastors please support this this conference. You retired, many of you, so you need to be on here. We're looking for your name. So all of you that if you don't see your pastor up there, give him a call and ask him why he's not here. God bless you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. God bless.
All right. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Bishop. Is Officer Rosenberg, is he on the call?
No.
Okay. Okay. Just want to give him an opportunity also to give a remark. We again want to just thank everyone for tuning in and chiming in, and we want you to share this event with you and what's going on for the next couple of days. At this time, we do want to this convention does require an offering, and we want to help our YAM, our young adult ministries. And we know that our young adults, we want to help them as much as possible. And so under our convention offering, we are going to afford you the opportunity to give. And there are two ways of giving. We have Cash App and we have PayPal, which our technician, Deacon Ware and Sister Stacia will show that those on the screen. You can help, you can give. And we appreciate your giving. And That's very important to help our young adults and show them that you do care about their cause and helping them. And so you can give in those two ways. Or also, if you want to mail in a donation, you can put it in your chat, and some of our tech team will see that and will instruct you on where to mail your donation to. So if we'll just take a moment so you can see that, and your love will be greatly appreciated in your giving. So we appreciate that. Those are the ways of giving. So please help us and help our young adult ministry and show them, our young adult members, that you do support their views and helping them. And listen, they're trying to, well, these are some saved young people, and we want to support them and in their endeavors. So let's give as much as we can, and let's truly help their cause. So you can do that, and if you need us to show that again, you can just put it in the chat, and we'll show those apps again at Cash App and PayPal, so that you can give for this convention offering. Well, we're just about done with this first workshop of our 2-day convention. We want you to tune in. We're going to, after this, we'll have a break, and then we'll convene back at, I believe, 6:30. And so we want to see you all to join us. We invite you to join us again back at 6:30. And all our pastors, as Bishop Turner said, we want to see you dressed in your attire and ready for service tonight. We want you to make sure that you call your members and just share with your friends, co-workers, and say, look, Oklahoma District has an awesome convention going on. We want you to be a part of it. So you can give out the Zoom number. It's on YouTube, Zoom, and Facebook. So they'll be able to enjoy this. So please share that. And again, we want to say thank you to the YAM department. Sister Blaine, you all have been awesome. You have been awesome. Dr. Young, just we used to say off the chain. You have done it, sir. And I'm like Bishop Turner. I have 3 pages of notes that I've taken from you. And so we're going to utilize that and put into practice some of the things that we want to try and get changed. Well, we're going to, I think Joy had the final remarks for Blaine. Joy, are we done, or did Blaine have anything that she wants to say before we get ready to close out?
We're done. Blaine just wanted to thank everyone for participating.
Okay. All right. And
can I break in for just a second?
Yes.
I want to recognize the first lady of our district, Evang Turner. She's on.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wonderful. Okay. Yes. All right. There she is. All right. That's Dr. Young. That's the first lady of our district. Evang Turner. That's Bishop Turner's better half.
So glad to meet you.
First lady, good to see you. There you are together. Wonderful. Wonderful.
That's my job, Mark.
Would you like to have words?
You know I got you back, Doc. You know I got you back.
Thank you for acknowledging, but I'm just here enjoying everything thus far. And already it's perfect vision of imperfect times. And right. So I would like to let Dr. George Young know that it was very rewarding to see and hear what has been going on. A lot of us know a lot of it, but I'll just say this, with the Tulsa thing, all these years, I didn't know until about 2 years ago. And so I'm glad that you are there doing what you're doing, and God is pleased. You continue to do what you're doing, because I know that the Lord is pleased with what you're doing. And thank you for allowing me to say that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, First Lady Turner. Also, we do want to recognize, I think Joy mentioned our Vice Chief of the National Brotherhood was on the call. That's Vice Chief Aaron Scruggs. We want to thank him for chiming in and being with us this afternoon also. Is he still on, Joy?
No, he was
Okay.
viewing through Facebook Live.
Okay, all right. Okay. Just let him know that we appreciate him coming on with us.
He hacked into the system, Clifford.
Sir?
He hacked into the system.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. We're going to send the security over to his house. Okay. All right. We're about to let you go, and we're going again. Thank you all, and tune in at 6:30. 6:30. We want to see everybody at 6:30. We want to at least about 5 minutes, 10 minutes till the technicians, Deacon Ware's station, want you to tune in about at least 10 minutes early so we can make sure that we have our sound right and lighting and all that type of thing so that we have a good recording for tonight's service. And tonight, we service, our overseer, Johnny Roseberry, will be bringing the message at 7. And at 6:30, we will have the celebration of our graduates. And that will be done by missionary Deborah Roseberry. So we want you to tune in at 6:30 for some more just dynamic services that's going to take place. Bishop, we're done, sir. If you want to close us out.
Surely. God bless you.
This session.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Again, we just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Young, and awesome job, and looking forward to again getting to meet you and to share in that friendship that you got with some of those brothers and sisters down there. I tell you, I've been hearing that you offer great lunches, so.
You got one coming. You got one coming. Just show up. Don't let me have to bring it to you. I may have to come down there and take you to lunch down there.
Anytime, my brother. We're looking forward to that. God bless you again. We want to thank each and every one of you. Let's close out in prayer. If you'd be so willing and humble yourself. We pray as the Lord has taught us. Father in heaven, we just thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing this meeting and this fellowship. We thank you and we give thanks unto your precious Son, Jesus, and all these things. And now we pray as you taught us in one voice by praying, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. God bless you. Everybody have a great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you back this evening. God bless.
God bless you. Bye-bye. Dr. Young, appreciate it.
For E technical. What is that?